Dave, thank you so much for hosting this, Lori. Thank you for all of your hard work. Kathy and Jim, it is an honor to be here. And you know, I have such an important message. I have to be very careful that I make sure you get exactly what I'm saying. And so I'm going to use this music stand and we're going to talk about something very important. And I can't thank you enough for being here, because if you're not sure, the balance of our country is hanging by your vote. Are you caught in a desperate economic situation with no control? Are you suffering from a real estate market that has trapped you in your own home? Have you or a loved one lost a job, lost a business? Are you struggling to make ends meet, put food on the table, or put gas in your car? Are you wondering how this nation can pay for Obamacare, foreign aid, green industries, bailout, stimulus, social services for illegals, border wars, foreign wars, interest payments to China and Japan, when you cannot even pay your own bills? Are you wondering why, after decades of never-ending rhetoric, we still have not achieved energy independence or can use our own natural resources? Now, do these questions sound like cheap lines from a late-night television infomercial? Any recognition there? Well, the sad thing is they're not. They are the questions of the day. I am Janice Arnold-Jones, and I am running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District. And I'm inviting you today to join me in the fight, in the work to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. I'm prepared to serve you. I am an Air Force war orphan, a graduate of Albuquerque High School, a Navy wife of 36 years. Where's John? He's right there. High school. And we have 2 kids. Commitment to God, family, and country is my middle name. I have been in small business and large business, and I know what it is like to worry about overhead, payroll, inventory, benefits, and layoffs. I know what it means to the people who take the risk to build the enterprises that build the wealth that enable us to create jobs that make our economy work. As former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill once said, if you want a master's in public policy, you should go to Harvard. If you would like a PhD in politics, go to New Mexico. Kathy just thought about it this way. I served 8 years in the New Mexico State Legislature, and I have the legislative experience, the triumphs, and the battle scars to show for my service. I made a difference on issues of transparency, budget accountability, and the sacred responsibility to use taxpayer dollars wisely. I helped to kill the bills that were right, and I never gave up fighting for the principles of right action, limited government, limited spending, and open-door lawmaking. I'm running for Congress because my diverse business experience and extensive travel have prepared me to defend this nation. We need to defend it because we are facing a menace to our freedom, our independence, and to the sovereignty of this state. Because our state and nation are being crushed by the weight of debt and a Congress refusing to do its job. Because we are being held hostage by a leader who bows and scrapes to other nations. A leader who has become an American apologist. I'm running for Congress because we're being held back by an ineffective president who succeeded in nothing but creating more debt, more social programs, and who alters, changes, and suspends law by executive order. I'm running for Congress because the current Congress has failed to pass a budget in over 900 days. And because Congress has surrendered our representative vote to a supercommittee of 12. I hope you're outraged. I'm running for Congress because there are millions without jobs, no hope of jobs, millions who have lost their life savings in the 2008 Wall Street debacle and the real estate fiasco that is emptying our homes, our neighborhoods, and our businesses. Millions paying for the entitlements of other millions who pay nothing and have no skin in the American game. Billions spent hourly on interest payments to other nations. We are now a debtor nation. I'm running for Congress because I'm a neighbor. Because our beloved nation is spiraling towards socialism. Because we are drowning in worthless paper currency in an economic war where other nations are growing stronger while we grow weaker. Because we have been denied our own resources, our own initiative, our own inventions, our own technologies. I'm running for Congress because I believe in the American people. I believe in America's ability to face the truth and find a solution. I believe America can meet every challenge and come out stronger on the other side. I believe in American ingenuity, American innovation, American grit, and the American get-her-done attitude. I believe in the spirit of the American people who always gives a hand up to anyone willing to help themselves. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that our founding fathers wrote the amazing words of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and that they were indeed endowed with wisdom and vision by our Creator. I'm running for Congress because I have a plan. I have a plan to bring New Mexico to the forefront of energy decisions. Ask me. I have a plan to make the case for New Mexico. Ask me. I have a plan to balance the budget, limit spending, and establish fair taxation for all. Ask me. I'm running for Congress because I am prepared to fight. I will enter the fray and get big government out of our lives and out of the way. I am prepared to go to the very heart of government to fight for and defend the average American, the average New Mexico business from being ambushed by regulatory agencies that wreak havoc on our economy. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to work. I am prepared by my life experiences to represent you in Washington, D.C. I will strive with you for the soul of our nation. You know, in the summer of 1787, it was hot, it was humid, it was miserable. The framers of our Constitution knew their labor would serve the millions yet to be born as they crafted our nation. The result? A representative republic, stable and resilient, provided that we the people, are willing to work to honor and preserve its constitutional foundation. So I ask you, Billy, what will you do without freedom? Lori, who will you be without freedom? Jim, is our American legacy worth fighting for? Shar, is the work of our founding fathers worth defending?
Yes, indeed.
So, let's make an oath together. Let us make an oath to work tirelessly for as long as it takes to restore America to the land of liberty, the land of enterprise, the land of opportunity. Let us once again bend to the task before us, pledging to preserve our nation under God, as the shining beacon of freedom and opportunity. 2012 is coming. This is it. We cannot afford to lose, and there is not much time. Join me. Join me now. Join me in the battle for our republic. Send me to Washington. Thank you.
What does a congressperson do to help us with jobs in New Mexico?
Actually, a number of things. First and foremost, the state. This is a good question. So, let me describe the problem. Our state gave up its economy about 1940 or so. And I say that because this state has been a service to our nation for that long. We have come to the service and the security of our nation. The price was our economy. Knowing that, so there are a couple things that we need to do. Whoever goes to Congress right now must make the case for New Mexico. They must make sure that Congress, that the rest of the nation understands what it is that we do in New Mexico that is so vital to our national security. It's often lost in translation. And very quickly, we are the nation's test bed. And I intend to defend that. That's step one. Step two is I intend to start whittling away to return federal property back to the state. Anytime a state is so consumed with federal property, you lose your economy. If you ever wonder why Texas is making more jobs than we have, it's because we have 34.6% federal property in our state and they have 4%. And it really doesn't take a whole lot to think about this. And that's not to say that I want to give up our great business. That's not my point. But some of our businesses are really stuck. And the third piece is regulatory. And so you will have a part of this, and so will I. So here's the measure. Anytime there is a regulatory question, and I'm like every single one of you, I believe in preserving, protecting our land, our air, being good stewards of what we have been given by our Creator. That's our job. But when a regulatory entity is holding you hostage until you don't have any more money, that's wrong. So I think anytime there is a regulatory permit issue, there is a time limit. If the business does what they need to do, and the government can't get their stuff together, then the business needs to go ahead. And I think we need to get on with it. We cannot be delayed by process. And that's not, I don't mean to be cavalier about it. There's a balance. But that's part of the problem. And, in that is, in New Mexico, is making more new businesses. Your government can throw a lot of money at it. They can throw money at, like, Solyndra. We almost did that for the tilapia deal. I kid you not, we could have had that. We could have had Solyndra. But those are sort of the answers, and I wish there were quick answers, but they're not. So, what do you think, Jim?
The regulations are terrible in a lot of different areas. And I know there's something that I think you're working on that I've already introduced in the legislation for this next session, which we're working on it now, but we have these rare earth metals in New Mexico that China has quit shipping rare earth metals around the world, and they're a strategic interest to the United States and in New Mexico in particular. But we need to change our mining laws just slightly in order to allow for that. You might want to elaborate on how that needs to be done.
Oh. See how good it is. We'll pay you later. but what Jim is saying is correct. So I know that rare earth elements or rare earth metals is not something that we talk about all the time. The reason that Solyndra is such an interesting example is here is a renewable energy company that the Department of Energy thought they know how to start a business, don't even get me going. Anyway, all of their component parts require rare earth metals. China, we are 100% dependent upon China for those rare earth metals. And so now we have Solyndra, who is making this apparatus, and they've now been shut off. Interesting about them is they always marketed their product at a rate less than what it cost them to make it. Those of you who are in business know this ain't gonna work. But those rare earth elements are part of the telephone, they're part of your TV screen, they are part of our weapons system. And the state of New Mexico has 13% of the world's deposits of rare earth metals. and we don't touch one of them. We're talking about jobs. Can we do this? Has the technology for mining changed in such a way that we can mine them efficiently and preserve our environment? You bet. You bet. So, we need jobs. That would be a good place to start. And by the way, just as a standard policy, I think any time our nation is dependent upon anything that is critical, we have got to change that picture. Yes, Richard?
These rare earth minerals, are they mostly on the federal land that's in New Mexico or the state land, or is it privately owned?
A little bit of everything. Tribal land, federal land, some private property. And the bulk of it, it's actually all through New Mexico. The higher deposits are in the Bolinas Mountains. Those are the highest deposits.
So what would be the regulatory scheme that you would have to do? Because you've got all of these different competing jurisdictions, I guess you call them.
Well, depending on where the jurisdiction is. First off, you have to decide what you want to do. And our governor is remarkably capable of actually changing this dynamic, and she has done a pretty good job so far. The other thing is we have to get companies who have the technology to mine it to come here. And we don't come to New Mexico sign up every border. We have to change that. That's probably the biggest thing. I don't know, Jim, if you have any idea, or Kathy, about how we get that shingle changed to open for business, because we're not there yet.
Well, we did pass a bill in the special session to give 5%, to close the out-of-state loophole, to give 5% preference to in-state businesses, which will help a lot.
But we don't have very many in-state mining businesses that have the expertise to actually extract the rare earth metals, which is a bit of a challenge, and it's slightly different. Richard?
Yeah. Is this underground mining? Is it hard rock mining? Is it like soft, like coal mining, or is it a strip mining?
It's actually a combination of all of those, and oftentimes the rare earth metals are formed as the result of tailings from other mining activities. Not always, but oftentimes, and so it's not a particularly simple process to extract them.
So it's not so much the mining; it's the milling.
Yeah.
That's the regulatory agencies.
Yeah, and the smelting. You're right, and the smelting. That's exactly right.
And the what?
Smelting.
Because
there are a number of different processes it takes to actually pull those items out. And what's interesting about rare earth elements is that they actually exist in combination. So you may be going after one, but you may get three. And hopefully you are going to be effective and efficient.
Janice, at the risk of being ignorant, list some of these rare earth metals.
Oh, I knew you were going to tell me that. I hardly can even say that. So the last 17 items on the periodic table, the last 17 on the right side,
The ones that we didn't bother to remember.
Right, those.
Those very ones.
They all end in IUM.
And for those of us that are really old, they weren't around. They weren't around on our tables.
Right there. Right. So but there are 17 of them, and the reason that we have cell phones and plasma televisions is because somebody was smart enough, I'm going to bet, somebody in one of our laboratories to use these rare earth elements to look at. That's where we are. And now China is kicking our butt.
But one of the issues with the mines, though, is that we're looking at having low-impact smaller mines. Typically, in Navajo country where you have uranium mines, they're huge, and most of the ones are not going to be strip mines; they're going to be hard rock mines. But you have to take the metal somewhere else and process it.
Is this going to be out of state then, or
we have some people that are looking to build processing here because we don't have any of this in the state of New Mexico, and I don't think anywhere in the country.
No place in our country are we mining rare earth metals. No place. And there are other deposits. Just our state has been blessed with the majority of the deposits. We don't have the only ones, but we have the majority and the highest concentration. And the challenge about rare earth metals is there are not large deposits any place, and they're pretty dispersed because of what they are. So there really are some challenges.
do they show up in veins, or is it just an underground deposit, more like uranium?
What I find is they're closer to the surface, and they're like clumps, not veins, more like clumps.
Nodes?
Good. Somebody, yeah, more like that. Yes, any other questions? Joy.
Janice, well, you've got two Tea Party groups here. Tea Party is very much in favor of a balanced budget amendment. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think,
The Congress has passed laws about balancing the budget, and Congress is very, very good at forgetting their own laws.
yes.
I'm being nice.
Yes, the last time that was done was 1978, signed by Jimmy Carter, put into effect in 1981, and nobody paid attention. So here's the deal. I say you balance the budget and you don't wait for a balanced budget amendment. I think it's a great thing. You don't have to wait to do the right thing. And Kathy and Jim and I are both, we're in a balanced budget state. You do it. You do it. You don't put it off. And, part of being a pain in the butt on the legislative floor is to make that fight every time, ad nauseum. And I'll do that.
And how do you get there? How do you get to the point where because it's hard to agree on things. Just with some different Tea Party groups around the state, we get together and we talk. It's difficult to agree on things. How do you get to the point where you can do that? And we're in such serious need of having that done. How do you get there?
Trista, that is a great question. So I have a perspective. First off, trust and a relationship. Why should you do anything I ask you to do if you don't know that what I'm saying is true and that you can trust me to behave in a certain way? Mm-hmm. Trust is huge. And in our Congress, we don't have that. And so having that face-to-face relationship is first most important. The second thing, when you have trust, even in Congress, this is a process. So if you are representing the state of Maine, and I am going to you and saying, I need for you to do certain things because it's in my state's interest, it really helps if you are convinced that I understand what's in your interest. And then let me go back to our founding fathers. They were not talking about compromise. They were talking about agreement. It's hard and it takes work. And know that we may not get there the first time, but I am willing to do the work. And it's really one-to-one work to make it happen. And I don't know if you sum that up as leadership, but I do.
Yes. That's a good summing up.
Good. Good. Other questions?
There's one thing that really bothers me is that we have a bunch of Muslims coming into this country, and they are turning it into a cancer, like an internal cancer. They have their own attorneys, they have their own doctors, and they're putting every one of them that comes to this country on welfare, disability. Once they get on disability, then they're eligible for food stamps, housing allowance, and everything else, and they are literally bleeding our country from the inside out, along with all the Mexicans and South Americans and everyone else that's coming into here, and no one seems to be caring that this is happening. It's eating our economy from the inside out. I can't even get the FBI interested in looking into it. I've tried to talk to them. They don't even talk.
Well, I'm saying, so you've brought up an excellent point. And two things. So do we believe in freedom of religion in our country? Freedom of religion. Not from, of. And we do. So that raises a couple of issues. But it's not just the Muslims and it's not just the Hispanics. It is the fact that that would be we, us, the people, have created some boxes that just simply make no sense. And it's time to simplify. It is time, I believe that if you are able-bodied, that you should not be, you should not avail yourselves of these particular services. And yet I know the other side of this is, even if you're a Muslim, even if you're in our nation illegally, and there should be no illegal visitation, by the way, but even as you are, I know who we are. And if you are in a traffic accident and you're hurt, we're going to make sure you get taken care of. That's who we are, and I don't want to change that. But I do resent someone else getting help before you do. You're an American. You should, at what point do you say, America first? And right now is the time, I believe, to say, America first. Yes, ma'am.
Another one for you. Congress gives the State Department the money. Mm-hmm. The State Department then doles it out in foreign aid, the United Nations, and all these other wonderful good things. Like we're borrowing money from China and sending them foreign aid, which somehow or another does not make sense to me, but that's I guess I'm just old-fashioned. As a congresswoman, will you look at the State Department's, because there's not much you can do except look at that State Department's budget and maybe put some caveats? I don't know if that's even possible for the Congress to do with the State Department.
Oh, you bet. Congress is in charge of their budget. And Congress, this is where we are off track. And when I mentioned that the president is executing via executive order, it should make your blood boil. Our founding fathers created 3 branches of government for a reason. Right. And the executive is given free rein to implement what Congress has bestowed in the budget. Within those parameters, Congress sets the policy. And so you bet we have a say on the State Department, and it's time to step up and say, excuse me. And when the president issues an executive order that trumps law created by Congress, Congress should be howling, and I don't understand why they're not.
Exactly.
Except that I actually believe that there are congressmen, congresswomen standing up and saying that you're just not hearing it. And you should be frightened. So, and with regard to foreign aid, so we're going to have to make some serious cuts. We have a deficit of $1.5 trillion a year. And your deficit is added to your debt every year. So it's probably time to pull back that foreign aid. I think we've got some countries that have been on foreign aid for over 50 years. And again, I'm going to go back to that other statement. Sometimes you have to clean up your own house. Sometimes it has to be America first. And I think long-term foreign aid should be off the table. But I am a fervent believer that when your friends are in trouble, and I will give you an example. When Japan was hit by the earthquake and the tsunami, I think you helped your friends.
Yes.
And that's the standard. All the way in the back. I'm sorry. You had a question, or did we talk over it?
Just a moment ago, Janice, this is more philosophical, I think. United Nations Agenda 21 and sustainable growth and development that's just seeping through the country. Santa Fe County is fighting it right now.
So let me introduce you to my opponent.
How do we cope with that?
My opponent, who I believe will be my opponent on the Democratic side, has been the city-level implementer of Agenda 21. Make no mistake about it, and that would be Marty Chavez, who was the executive director of ICLEI. I love that acronym. ICLEI. And that at the end of the day, that is a taking of private property. And I just can't say it in any other nice terms. There are some elements that are okie dokie, but at the end of the day, it's about taking your private property, and I am against that.
Absolutely.
It's also about running
How do we educate? How do we educate people? It's almost an underground movement that people are just not aware of. How do we educate the public about that?
Well, I think you're doing it by your emails, by your discussion, and so let me put Rita on the spot. Have you had Agenda 21 come to your council meetings yet?
Not as such.
Not as such.
We have one counselor who's very in favor of green building.
And here's the problem. Not all green, I don't know anything that is 100% bad. I just don't know that. But as a policy, the Agenda 21 really intends to tell you how you can live on your property, and will take your property. And I just don't think Americans need that. I think you are Americans because you can make that decision. I think.
But gee, Janice, you get to pay the taxes on it.
Well, I would say I'm going to raise my hand and say I don't like that. I don't like that.
I have a question.
I'm sorry. Don't get the people.
Rita.
I heard on the news that a lot of Chinese ladies are coming to the United States to deliver their babies, so that they have the anchor baby. Now, this is very interesting coming from an up-and-coming, their upward mobility financially is there. But this anchor baby, when do we say enough? Just by sheer numbers.
Yeah, I had not heard about the Chinese. So the anchor baby policy it's fraught with problems, but I believe it has outworn its usefulness. But I had not heard about Chinese women in particular coming here, because I do believe that China has designs on our country. I know why. And I reject that. I reject the notion that the state of Idaho is considering selling 50 square miles of its land to China as a sovereign entity because they're cash strapped. You know, at some point, yeah, had you not seen that? You know, go back and look at the governing magazine. It's very interesting. You know, and so at what point do we stand up and we say, enough? And America first. America first.
And of course, you know, the Canadians on our north border are by and large of like mind.
Yes.
They will, City of Edmonton will soon own the Edgewood water system, Mexico-American water system. It was homegrown,
Yeah.
but suddenly it's going to be once again owned by another foreign owner. And however, they're more of like mind than we are. However, the Mexican government is just volatile. And, you know, it is on our border.
Well, you know, and
it's going to consume those border states.
Well, that's right. And here's one of the problems with our Commerce Clause. And I do not profess to be an expert on the Commerce Clause, but I think there is something fundamentally wrong when in the name of the Commerce Clause that we lose our water rights to entities owned by foreign governments, that we lose our land to entities owned by foreign governments. I just think that's wrong.